something.
Okay, try that.
This looks like a room. Okay, so I gotta get off this.
Okay.
To do it.
Okay.
Are you live now?
It says live.
Okay.
Let's
So
see.
Alfonso is coming in, or?
Yeah. I think so. There he is.
Yay!
It says live.
It says it. I see it.
It looks like we're really smart people.
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what it is? I don't know that we're smart, but we persevere and we push through anyway.
We did it.
Even though we are not very good at this.
So I'm just trying to see here. I'm looking at my laptop where it is.
Like on Keen's page, I don't even see us. So
Is it? It might be. Let me just see something. Okay. Yes, we are live. I see it.
Oh yes, I see it now. Kemba, I see it.
It's not. So just to let you
amazing.
know, it's on your personal page. It's not
Yes.
the business page.
And that's what I was saying to you, Kemba. It wouldn't let me get into my business page. It
I
just
see. Okay. Well, and maybe that's what happened the last time why it was so easy, because we did it on our personal pages.
Yes.
I think it's more functional, and I see there's already people here on here, so it's great.
Awesome.
Oh, awesome. So
I want to share this. Let me see where I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it. I want to share it to page. Okay, I can share that to my page.
Nice.
We'll do that.
Let's do that. You know,
and it's so funny because the video actually starts with you showing me the screen. We were live at that time.
Yes, I see it. I see it, Kemba. I can see that.
It's
all right. It's all right. I think people will still get the value here.
Yes.
Figure it out, and they'll have to just go through it until they get to the conversation, which is why we're here.
Yes. So Alfonso, why don't I start by a brief introduction, because we know who you are, and maybe some of the people listening need to know who you are. So I'll just say, thank you for joining us at Keen Group and coming on and chatting with us. Alfonso is an international speaker, author, real estate investor, mentor, coach, entrepreneur, and I love to say style guru, because
oh, hold on, you can't see my pocket square.
I can. We can see. Oh, on my phone I can. On the computer.
I gotta do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. If only we could see the shoes. No shoes. But
no shoes. This is Zoom life.
That's right. Our new COVID, digital version. Yeah, we're different now.
Yeah. But of all those things, Alfonso, it was great to learn from you. It was great to meet you, and so I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Likewise. I'm excited, guys. I'm excited. This is gonna be fun.
It was. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like I gave you a brief introduction, but I'm sure I just scratched the surface.
Yeah. So I'll give you the cliff notes. So I was born in Latin America, specifically El Salvador in Central America. Okay. Before the age of 9, I was in 2 wars. My mom was actually a journalist in the Civil War in my country, and she was taken prisoner as a result of speaking out against things that were unjust by our government. Mm-hmm. Illegally detained and sentenced to 40 years in prison. I went to live with my grandparents, and they had to keep me in hiding because they were scared of kidnap from our government. Thank God, we were given asylum, and my mom was freed. There was it was a huge international story, and a lot of people got involved internationally. And we came here as refugees in '86. And I remember just coming to Canada. I remember my mom only had about $40 in her pocket. And, you know, it was a big culture shock. First of all, we were in the '80s. So this was '86. So, you know, Latin America, especially Central America, was in turmoil. Multiple countries at war. Like I said, I was in 2 civil wars. So we were in El Salvador. We had moved to Nicaragua, and another war started there. I don't know if you guys remember, in the '80s, Nicaragua was a communist country, and then, you know, just went all out war. And so before the age of 9, I was in 2 wars, and now I find myself in Vancouver with my mom, single mother, powerful woman. She's always been my mentor. And I remember the experience coming in as a landing refugee. We were put into hotels, because these are like multiple different countries were seeking refuge in Canada. And so what the Canadian government did was actually, I guess they would rent out all these hotels, all these different hotels, all of the rooms. And so we were put in one of the rooms, and everyone in that hotel was a refugee, right? And it was like a mini little Latin America. So that was my first experience, you know, coming into Canada. Everything is different. One big moment for me was, you know, turning on the television in the hotel room. It's like, first of all, there's a television. Second of all, it's in color. Wow. And I remember even the show that was playing, the very first time I ever turned on a television, it was Different Strokes.
What? That's a joke.
What you talking about, Willis? What you talking about, Willis? And you know, just to see the ambiance and like everything, and I felt like there's so much opportunity here. The roads are clean. You know, it was just a culture shock for me. And you know, I felt, even at 9 years old, I knew that I was in a place of opportunity. And so that's how I grew up. Now, integrating into schools, I was, because I had moved around, my grandparents had kept me in hiding. I'd missed a lot of educational opportunities. And so I was behind in my education. And, you know, coming from, you know, Latin America, like, you know, my mom, like, she values education like that. This is the highest. So, you know, as a kid, my mom would say you know, the things that matter in life is getting good grades in school, getting a university degree. She said, if you don't have a university degree, you're nothing. You're nothing. And then if you want to, you know, if you want to go to the next level, you get a master's degree. In the pinnacle of life would be getting a PhD, right? Yeah. And that's all that matters. You know, you do that, you'll be good for your whole life. Now, imagine me, you know, not being an academic, right? I'm not an academic, failing school. How did I feel? What kind of self-confidence did I have, right? And I think, you know, a lot of people that come to this country, in other cultures, you know, education is so valued that, you know, if you think outside the box or want to start a business, everybody's like, don't do it. So eventually
it's a scary thought.
I ended up dropping out of high school at 15. And of course, this was like unheard of, right? Like you don't do this. And
Your mama was not pleased.
So, you know, we had conflict at home. So now I'm 15. So I also leave home at that time. Now I'm homeless, sleeping on park benches, you know, sleeping on the streets, living on the streets, getting in trouble with all kinds of bad people, living in a very dark place, panhandling for change. And so, you know, for me, when I think back at those times, I remember thinking, like, you know, I just had no confidence. I had no self-worth whatsoever. And that's how someone would end up in a situation like that. I mean, we've all had dark moments. I'm sure you guys have had your dark moments. I mean, everybody's had a point in their life when they're like, just, I've had it. Now, I did have a life-changing moment. And fortunately for me, it came a few years after. When I was 17, I became a father. And yes, and this completely changed my life. And I realized, like, you know, all the torture I put my mom through, because now I'm responsible for this whole new human being.
Yeah.
And it was a little girl, and her name is Talia. And she's like my guardian angel, because, you know, for the very first time in my life, I discovered purpose and having a why. And like I've always said to everyone, if your purpose is powerful enough, it will make you unstoppable. And so that was the pivot for me. And I went back to school, got a job, didn't pay much, $5 an hour. I had to do something. You know, I have a small family. I wanted to take care of this little girl. And so I started a business. And at 17 years old, you know, I didn't have many skills, but I knew about hip hop. And you know, I knew everything about hip hop. I could, you know, the Source magazine, I could tell you every artist. And so what I would do is I would go to Toronto, Montreal, New York on a bus, and I would buy T-shirts, jeans, and mixtapes from street vendors, and I'd bring it back to my school in Ottawa, and I would sell them from my locker. You guys remember that kid with the backpack with always something to sell? That was me.
That was you.
That was me. And I discovered something powerful at 17, the power of profits. Because, you know, my value in the market was $5 an hour. That was minimum wage. And that's what the job would pay. Every hour of my time, I would get $5 for that hour. But I could make a $40 in a 10-minute transaction, selling a pair of jeans that I bought for $20 for $60. And so now I didn't know fancy words like profits and things like that, but all I could tell you is that I made a decision at 17 that I was not going to go to university, and I was going to pursue profits for the rest of my life. And that's when I started. You know, 17, I grew that business. At 19, I graduated, and I opened my very first physical location. I went from that physical location at 19 to having locations all across Canada, being the #1 urban clothing superstore in the nation, with stores from, you know, BC to New Brunswick and everything in between. And, you know, this is by the time I'm 21. And so I fell in love with being an entrepreneur. I fell in love with the freedom that it gave me. I fell in love with the things that I could do for my family, the time that I could have with them. Now, the problem was,
I wish, Alfonso, at this point, I had all the young people in my family sitting down listening to you right now. Go on.
Well, I'm so passionate about teaching young people. We can get into that later on, or maybe on the podcast. But you know, I mean, I think I was fortunate that I fell into an industry. It was a bit of a mixture of me being a father, figuring out I needed to do something in being there at the beginning of hip hop in Ottawa in that industry, and I was able to ride it up, right? But this is like the equivalent of someone winning the lottery, right? If you don't know how to manage money, you know, we see this all the time. People win the lottery and they're back to where they were 3 years later. They're back. They're even worse sometimes. Bankruptcy, right? And so the problem was that I was never taught anything in my home about finances. I mean, my mom said the most important thing was my grades and a university degree. But when I got into the real world, nobody asked me about my grades, and nobody asked me if I had a university degree. They wanted to see credit. They want to see financial statements. They wanted to see that I knew what I was doing. And so even though that all this money was coming, it was also leaving. You know, I didn't know how to keep the money. I was very much a consumer, and a lot of people get stuck in that consumer mindset, right? And I would spend the money on cars, jewelry. I mean, you can imagine, I mean, being a young man growing up in hip hop, and the only people that I looked up at were like, you know, Russell Simmons, P. Diddy, and all these people. All they did was show their money.
Now,
no one talked about investing. What?
Yeah. I say all I can imagine is you in the baggy jeans and the big gold chain and all that.
Yeah. You know, very much a consumer. And so what happened to me was 9/11. So 9/11 was a time when things stopped. We were getting our products from the US. Borders were shut down. All flights were grounded. People went into isolation because they were stuck to CNN to see what's going to happen. If you remember, I don't know if you remember what you were doing or where you were. I remember exactly where I was. And so the behaviors changed, buying behaviors, companies, everything shifted. And I thought that business was always going to be this way, right? I didn't know about, you know, ups and downs. And so I almost lost everything. And I ended up in a situation where now I'm at a point of bankruptcy. I'm 24. So 21, king of the world. I have everything, you know, money coming in. And then 24, now I'm in debt, $1 million, negative $1 million. People are cutting me off. And I'm at a point where, like, the accountants, everybody's saying you should claim bankruptcy. And so that was a hard lesson.
It is. And Alfonso, I don't want to stop you there, but it felt like you were describing our last 12 months, not 2011, you know, not.
It was 2001, I think.
No, 2001, not 9/11.
20 years ago. This is
20 years ago.
20 years ago. 20 years.
2 months or 3 months, it'll be 20 years.
Yeah. Wow.
But you're exactly what you described there just is what happened. Borders closed, isolation, you know.
Yeah. That's exactly. And then people were addicted. There was an addiction to CNN when, like, that whole thing with the towers and all the conspiracies, and then going into finding bin Laden and all that stuff. It was just a big distraction for everyone. I mean, that lasted for months. Maybe other industries didn't feel it, but we couldn't get anything over the border. And so now I'm like almost losing everything. And I remember it like it was yesterday.
Wow.
I'm sitting at the edge of my bed one morning, and I'm like, what happened? Like, everything was so good, right? It's like, you know, it's like Mike Tyson waking up one day and it's like, what happened? Like, I had $400 million and it's gone, right? And so that's how I felt. I felt like a failure. I felt like I wasted my opportunity. And that's when I started reading. I started reading about wealthy people. I went to chapters. I bought Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. And what I discovered was that I was extremely vulnerable with the business. Number one, I started to read about wealthy people, and They didn't. There's no wealthy person that is a consumer. All wealthy people have the investor mindset versus the consumer mindset. So that was number one for me. I realized it was like a self-reflection. I'm like, whoa, all I put my money into was depreciating assets. And so I needed to shift that right away. Number two, I was vulnerable with the business because I only had one stream of income. And so the third thing I realized was I needed to build a stream of income that was indestructible, because I never, ever, ever wanted to put my family through that ever again. And that's when I came to the conclusion of real estate. So this is like, this is all happening to me. All these like, you know, it's like I'm almost like I came from nothing. Now I have something. Now they're taking it away. And I started to see specifically multifamily.
Right.
And I entered the multifamily space. And for me, at that, it was so logical. It was like economy at scale, and the risk you could spread throughout many units, right? To me, it made perfect sense that I should be going after multifamily. So that's when I started, 2001, 2002. What?
Alfonso, you know, it's when I heard you sort of talk about that in that way, you know, because I did your course. Like I was part of that that 3-day session with you, and I was like, ding, 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 ding. It was like,
it makes sense.
You know, wow, it made total sense. And I absolutely, you know, appreciate that you were able to share that with me. You know, ask Andrea, I get excited all the time when we talk about multifamily.
Well, you know, for me, it's just so powerful, right? Because when I had my stores, and a customer would come in, it would, you know, the acquisition price for us was high to bring that customer into the store, right? We have brick and mortar that we have to spend a lot of money. We have to create a nice window, advertisement. I mean, there's a lot of money that it takes for that human being to step into one of our locations. Now it's up to us. We have to sell this customer. Each person, let's say they wanted to spend $100. We need to figure out how they can spend $300-400. Okay. Now this person takes their items and then they leave. We don't know if they're ever going to shop ever again, right? With multifamily, the business, the customer is the unit, right? Someone has to go out and work to come back and pay for this unit. And then when this customer leaves, there's another one here. Like the unit is, it's just so, it was so logical to me.
You keep the product and the customer comes back.
And so like we have to work hard to acquire this customer. Now, the thing is in reverse. The customer now has to go work hard to pay for their living space, right? So, I mean, as you guys know, I know you guys know how valuable time is. Time is the most valuable thing that we have. And so, you know, when you have an apartment, you actually own that person's time, because that person now has to go and produce an income to come and exchange their time to come back and pay for this, to rent your unit. And specifically multifamily, people will always have to live somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And so I mean, this was like the aha moment for me. And so I started, you know, triplexes, fourplexes, then I leveled up to 10 units. And quickly, I started to see how easier it was the bigger I went. The mortgage is easier, the management is easier, the numbers make more sense. Again, economy of scale. The more units, the more profit, right? It's like Costco. And so
it's like, what did you say? It's like Costco?
It's like Costco. When you go, you're buying toilet paper, right? You reduce the price per unit because you're buying in bulk. And so the more units you're buying in an apartment building, it's a economy of scale, right? It's like the lower cost per unit, the more units that are in that property. So then that was really attractive to me. And so now, 20 years later, I own apartment buildings all across Canada. And, this is what I do full time, right? I do this full time. I love it. I want to get young people involved in it. I started.
Kemba, I think we should move to our podcast shortly.
Yeah.
I went off. You asked one question and I went off. I went off, but yeah.
So let's leave them with that. Everyone on the live, we're so happy you joined us. We're gonna leave you with that, and we're gonna go across to our podcast.
Is it live? Is the podcast live?
No.
No, so the podcast, you'll have to listen in and tune in the next week or so. We should have it ready by early next week for you to be able to get the nuggets that you want. Those secrets that Alfonso will be sharing with you.
I'm going to share everything. I'm not going to leave anything behind in your podcast, okay?
Yeah.
But because I shared this on my page as well, maybe introduce yourselves to my audience.
Yes.
And let them know where they can find this podcast. Where I'm not gonna just be dropping nuggets. They're gonna be like bombs. I'm gonna be dropping bombs on this podcast. So you guys can go ahead and share all the coordinates.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're Keen Real Estate Group, and we can be found on www.keengroup.ca. That's our website. We're also on Instagram as Keen on You, and our podcast can be found on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast at Keen on You. So I'm Andrea and my business partner Kemba, and we're both Williams because we're family and we're doing it together. Yeah. So we are going to get it's cool. Yeah. It's like doing
Alfonso's family now too.
It makes sense. The multifamily, the family also makes sense working as a unit.
Yeah.
So we're going to share all, like Alfonso said, we're going to give you the bomb. All of it is going to be available on that podcast.
Yes.
So
you guys,
let's take it over there.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yes, so
bye, guys.
We're going to catch up with you shortly. Bye,
go
guys.
catch
Thank
that podcast. You go to your page, catch that podcast.
That's right. We'll be sharing it next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.